You think you know Henry VIII, the king with 6 wives and a crown dripping in power? But what if I told you the reality was far darker? A body rotting while alive, paranoia that infected an empire, and a death so foul it turned into a nightmare. This is the truth. By the end of his life, Henry VIII wasn't just a king, he was a walking corpse. His waist stretched to an unbelievable 54 inches. He weighed around 400 pounds in an age when the average man barely crossed 140. Yet his obesity was only the beginning. His legs were covered in ulcers, festering, pus-filled wounds that oozed constantly. Courtiers described the smell as unbearable, detectable from rooms away. Servants drew straws to decide who would dress him, as approaching Henry's body felt like punishment. And then came the brain injury. In 1536, Henry suffered a horrific jousting accident, left unconscious for 2 hours, effectively dead by medieval standards. Modern doctors suspect traumatic brain injury, explaining his descent into paranoia and rage. Others believe he had Cushing's syndrome, accounting for his bloated body, mood swings, and never-healing wounds. Servants carried chairs everywhere because the king could barely move. His bowels betrayed him daily. The so-called divine ruler of England, who ordered executions for mere glances, couldn't control his own body. Henry VIII's court wasn't just a royal palace. It was the stinking theater of a man rotting alive. Everyone knows Henry had 6 wives, 2 executed, 2 divorced, 1 dead in childbirth, 1 widowed. But the truth was darker psychological torture that makes him rival modern serial killers. Anne Boleyn wasn't just beheaded. Henry staged a show trial, forcing tortured confessions and orchestrating the deaths of 5 innocent men, including Anne's own brother. Henry VIII's court wasn't just a royal palace. It was the stinking theater of a man rotting alive. Everyone knows Henry had 6 wives, 2 executed, 2 divorced, 1 dead in childbirth, 1 widowed. But the truth was darker psychological torture that makes him rival modern serial killers. Anne Boleyn wasn't just beheaded. Henry staged a show trial, forcing tortured confessions and orchestrating the deaths of 5 innocent men, including Anne's own brother. She watched each die, knowing her turn was next. Catherine Howard was barely a teenager when Henry married her. When her past relationship surfaced, he didn't just kill her. He changed English law, making it treason for anyone to marry the king without confessing their sexual history. Henry rewrote the law of an entire kingdom out of petty rage. Catherine of Aragon, his first queen, spent her final years in isolation, barred from her daughter Mary, dying alone, possibly poisoned. Anne of Cleves was so terrified of Henry that she agreed to annul their marriage, pretending it never happened, just to stay alive. Even Jane Seymour, the so-called lucky one, died of childbirth complications. 9 days after her funeral, Henry was already planning his next wedding. These weren't marriages. They were psychological prisons. Divorce was impossible. Escape meant death. And the cost wasn't just theirs, families risked ruin with them. Henry VIII's wives weren't queens. They were pawns, broken beneath the weight of his ego. Henry VIII didn't just eat like a king. He ate like a man trying to consume England itself. Daily, he devoured 5,000 calories or more, an entire roasted pig, chickens, fish, mountains of bread, and endless wine. His kitchens ran with over 200 staff preparing 800 dishes every day. But Henry's meals were more ritual than nourishment. Food was first tested by multiple servants, then left for 30 minutes so he could confirm they didn't keel over. Eating was a spectacle. Crowds watched as the rotting monarch devoured for 4 hours straight. He believed swan meat made him graceful. Venison made him a hunter. Oysters boosted his performance in bed. Superstitious and greedy, he gorged endlessly even as his own body collapsed under the strain. Meanwhile, he banned humble foods, barley, turnips, grains, not for health, but because they were beneath his majesty. Ironically, those same foods might have saved his life. But Henry was convinced his royal blood protected him. His body told another story. Henry VIII. By his final years, trust no longer existed, only fear. He slept with loaded crossbows by his bed, daggers under his pillow, and guards stationed at his side. Secret tunnels crisscrossed palaces so he could flee at any sign of danger. Peepholes and listening devices monitored his courtiers. But Henry didn't stop there. He created networks of spies who spied on his spies. Nobody knew whom to trust. A stray word could mean execution. Even his daughters, Mary and Elizabeth, were monitored like criminals. Meals became military operations. Spices, salt, and water were tested separately. His paranoia was so extreme he sometimes executed people for crimes they hadn't committed. Dreams or rumors were enough. Life at Henry's court wasn't glamorous. It was psychological torture, a prison where nobles betrayed each other. Servants whispered lies and fear ruled more effectively than law. Henry VIII wasn't just a king, he was a dictator who poisoned his own empire with suspicion. Surely death would end the horror. But not for Henry VIII. Even in death, he spread chaos. By his final days, pieces of his rotting body literally fell off as servants carried him in custom-made chairs. His deathbed stank so horribly that doctors fled vomiting. When he finally died, his body bloated grotesquely, gases building until his coffin exploded during the funeral procession. Royal remains spilled inside the hearse. Dogs licked the dripping flesh of England's once mighty king. Even burial was chaos. The oversized coffin collapsed the soil, forcing workers to repeatedly dig wider. For years, locals claimed foul smells seeped from his grave. The king who ruled by divine right ended as a bloated carcass, devoured by rot, rejected even by the earth. So, this is the true Henry VIII, not the charming ruler of portraits, but a grotesque tyrant whose body, mind, and soul decayed before the eyes of his court. His legacy isn't just 6 wives or a new church, it's a warning. A lesson in how unchecked power corrodes humanity. If these disturbing truths shook what you thought you knew about history, subscribe now. Because this was only one story. And trust me, there are far darker ones still buried in the past.